Hi everyone. So today I want to talk about blacking out. If you've drank, or sometimes on heroin you're not out and you don't remember things. With drinking, when I would drink heavy, real heavy, I wouldn't remember what I did the previous night. And there's a lot of songs and sort of funny stuff said about blackouts, but they can also be terrifying. If you wake up and your car isn't in the front of your house and you don't know what you did last night, or you wake up in bed with somebody that you don't know, or you find out from friends or associates that you acted like a sort of a jackass and you have no recollection of it and you embarrassed yourself. This topic comes up a lot, specifically when it concerns the freedom model and the fact that alcohol and drugs do not change the content of your thoughts. People will say, well, in a blackout, I did things that I ordinarily wouldn't have done. And so, obviously, the drugs or the alcohol were in control of my behavior. Now, what's interesting about this is, if you have a lack of control, that's an absolute, meaning there is no control. So the question becomes, every time somebody can't remember the night before while they're intoxicated, do they react as zombies who have completely random, uncontrolled behavior? You can't say you're out of control in your behavior and then also say, well, it was in the boundaries of some acceptable behavior. Okay? So if you're out of control, it means that you completely, did you talk in gibberish? Did you take all your clothes off and run down the street? Does every time you black out turn into completely randomized behavior that you would have absolute no control over? People say, well, no, not really. I mean, I did take my top off at the bar, and I would never do that. Or I drove drunk, and normally I wouldn't do that. What we find is, if you're driving drunk, you're still behaving and choosing. Now, that's important. Secondly, when you're drunk and you believe in the license to misbehave and you believe in loss of control, those ideas end up permeating the experience. In other words, your expectancy of what you expect out of that drunk experience is something that plays a major role. Now, in a blackout, you're still choosing in the moment in which you're drunk. Just because you can't remember it doesn't mean you didn't choose the behaviors while you were drunk. This is a real important distinction. Okay? If you have amnesia from a car accident, does it mean you didn't choose to get in the car and drive it? Think about what I just said. If you have amnesia because of a head injury in a car accident, does that mean that prior to that moment of impact that you didn't choose it and you didn't have volition? That would be ridiculous. To the same degree that when you're drunk and behaving and choosing during a blackout, just because you have amnesia from the poisoning you're giving yourself with alcohol and drugs, doesn't mean you're not choosing still in that moment, in that nighttime, or day, or whenever the blackout is. I've had blackouts. I'll give you an example. I had a blackout that was about 2 days long at college. I was drinking the entire time, and for 2 days, and I was drinking bourbon whiskey, I can remember, 2 bottles of it, and I had an exam, a major test, the next day. I studied at 2 o'clock in the morning, drunk out of my mind, went to class the next day, passed the exam with a C, of material I barely knew, because I wasn't high on the studying at that time, and yet I have no recollection of any of it. None. The entire 2 days was gone. As a matter of fact, I walked into class on the third day. I walked into the wrong classroom because I had missed a day. And yet, I had gone to class, I took the exam, I passed it, I studied. My roommate said, Mark, you were sitting there drinking bourbon all night studying at 3 in the morning. I said, I was. I didn't remember that. And he goes, you stumbled out, didn't take a shower, went and took your exam, came back and passed out. And I passed. I couldn't tell you what was on the exam. I couldn't tell you anything. But at that moment, I knew. So we have experiences like this. But if you're a huge believer in, I get to have crazy behavior when I drink and drug, that's going to play into your blackout scenario deeply because you're hammered. And it's no different than if you were hammered to that level and you remembered. It's just you poisoned your brain, so you have amnesia. So blackouts are amnesia caused by a poisoning of your brain tissue. So, but it doesn't take away choice, volition, or your ability to reason out things. That's really important for you to understand. This is a hard concept because people assume that if they can't remember, they're out of control. And that's an incorrect logic. Okay? So I hope I helped make that a little more clear. We're going to cover this in more detail in the Facebook Live today. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.